Sponge on the Run is the third theatrical installment in the SpongeBob SquarePants cinematic universe. It received an early release in Canada on August 14th of 2020, which is how I was able to watch the film, but don't worry, it will be released in the US later in 2021. The film follows SpongeBob and Patrick as they go on a journey to rescue Gary, who has been snail napped and then taken to Atlantic City. The plot also has the added task of introducing Camp Coral, which will be spun off into its own TV series that will follow child versions of the characters and explain their origins. This film shines a light on what direction Nickelodeon is taking the series in and how they are planning on squeezing it till it's completely dry. But before I criticize this film and Nickelodeon's treatment of the series, I'm going to discuss my positive thoughts on the film. And keep in mind, everything said in this video is only my personal opinion and could differ from yours, so please don't take it personally and feel free to share your own thoughts in the comments below where we can have a friendly discussion regarding our opinions. And also, warning for spoilers, this review will contain massive spoilers for the film, so beware if you haven't seen it yet. Now, I quite enjoyed the new animation that they experimented with in the film. It had a sort of claymation feel to it, while also feeling smooth and crisp like most animated films of today. Each theatrically released SpongeBob film has explored a different style of animation, with the first film sticking to its 2D roots while mixing in some live-action sequences, and then the second film trying out 3D animation once again while combining it with live-action elements, and this has kept each film feeling fresh and is something that I can definitely praise Nickelodeon for experimenting with. The voice work as well within the film is superb as usual, with the original cast reprising their respective roles and giving energetic performances that do a great job of keeping the viewer engaged with the film. And that's it. Those are all my positives for this film. I know, I don't have many, but it leaves a lot of time to discuss all my negative opinions on the film. First off, the celebrity cameos are rampant in this new installment. There is a solid 10 to 15 minutes of pure celebrity cameos, including Keanu Reeves, Snoop Dogg, and Danny Trejo. Now, I want to say firstly that I have nothing against any of these actors. Instead, I just feel that the roles in the film could have been handled a bit better. Starting off, Keanu Reeves surprisingly becomes a recurring character throughout the film, which I honestly did not expect to be the case, and initially thought that he would just have a few minutes of screen time and then leave, but they instead have him join SpongeBob and Patrick on their journey. Now, I think that Keanu Reeves is a fantastic actor, and I don't necessarily think that he gave a poor performance in the film, but I just feel like he should have been kept to a short cameo within the film and not a recurring presence within it. In contrast, Snoop Dogg and Danny Trejo's cameos were kept to just that, a cameo. Nothing more, nothing less. However, Snoop Dogg's felt like a music video shoehorned into a scene, and Danny Trejo's felt very out of place. To provide more context, SpongeBob and Patrick are on their way to Atlantic City until they find themselves being driven into a deserted town in the middle of an above-world desert. This of course prompts SpongeBob and Patrick to question if they're dreaming due to them being able to magically breathe air, which by the way we never really find out if they were really dreaming or not because they do end up being transported back to sea level, but they also are still accompanied by Keanu Reeves. This felt as if the writers could not decide what they wanted their explanation to be, so they just took the easy way out and didn't explain it at all. Nonetheless, in this abandoned town, we stumble into a bar inhabited by ghost pirates that are being kept there by Danny Trejo's character, who is like a demonish devil of some sort. He winds up capturing SpongeBob and Patrick, who in order to escape open his curtains letting in light and disintegrating Danny Trejo in the process. Don't get me wrong, I understand that SpongeBob has always had a certain amount of random humor and that can work under certain circumstances, but this felt like it derailed the story and its only purpose was to pick up Keanu Reeves so he could join them on their journey while acting as their spiritual guide. We've seen celebrity cameos work within previous SpongeBob films, such as David Hasselhoff, who had a very small presence and role within the first film. He was given something important to do by assisting the character's return to Bikini Bottom, and that was it. By keeping it to a small appearance, it avoids overshadowing the film's story and avoids feeling like a gimmicky ploy to get more viewership and or attention. It's obvious that Keanu Reeves was put in this film because of his extremely high popularity at the moment, and being able to put his face in a trailer for this film would be sure to bring in an audience that they may not have been able to persuade to see the film as easily without him. To conclude on this point, I think that cameos can work within the SpongeBob films, but should be done without compromising the core story and not just be a sad attempt to gain a larger audience. Moving on, my next point of digression is with the core plot of the film, and that is finding and bringing Gary back home. This has been done in the series previously in the episode Have You Seen This Snail, and in my opinion was better in every way. Now, I'm not saying that you can't repeat old plot points while breathing new life into the old ideas, but I still think that when you're writing a full-on theatrical film for SpongeBob, it's important to bring some new concepts and ideas to the table. I mean, come on, the title Sponge on the Run is the same title as a previously released SpongeBob app. And the title doesn't even make sense. Sure, SpongeBob is on the road searching for Gary, but he isn't necessarily on the run. I mean, this title would have made more sense for the second film, because at least he went on the run after teaming up with Plankton and seemingly betraying Mr. Krabs. My point is that you don't need to retread old ideas when there are so many grand possibilities for compelling big screen stories involving these characters. Subsequently, my last and final negative point is surrounding the Camp Coral origins that are just shoved into the film. They first make mention of this origin when Gary is initially found to be missing, and SpongeBob reminisces about when he met Gary at Camp Coral and they became friends. Now, after watching this flashback, you don't end up seeing more setup for Camp Coral until the end of the film, so this at first made me happy and relieved that this film wasn't only going to be a setup for Nickelodeon's new spin-off series. But I was left mistaken, because at the end of the film, SpongeBob ends up being on trial for attempting to steal Gary from Poseidon. This leads to SpongeBob's friends Patrick, Sandy, Squidward, and Mr. Krabs coming to his aid by telling stories of how they each met SpongeBob in order to prove that he is not a bad person. Now imagine my face as I'm watching them literally solve the film's main predicament by basically advertising their new series. I was, to say the least, disappointed by this and astonished that they would incorporate something like this into the end of the film just to advertise their new series. Now don't get me wrong, I wanted to really like this film. It would have been amazing for SpongeBob SquarePants to have a near-perfect trilogy, but I can't just sit here and pretend to like something that I really didn't. This film felt soulless and more visually attractive without much substance behind it. In an interview, Steven Hillenburg said, "The show is about SpongeBob. He's the core element, and it's about how he relates to the other characters. Patrick by himself might be a bit too much, so I don't see any spin-offs." As you can see from that quote, Hillenburg never wanted to make any spin-offs for SpongeBob, and yet after his sad passing in 2018, it seems that Nickelodeon promptly went ahead to begin planning multiple spin-offs. Nickelodeon is planning to make, of course, Camp Coral along with a Squidward spin-off on Netflix, and most recently have announced a Patrick Star show as well. It just feels as if they are planning to milk this whole series for everything it has. With a series like SpongeBob that doesn't have an overarching narrative, it seems unnecessary to make spin-offs, because if you want to do an episode where you flash back to the characters at Camp Coral, then you have the ability to do so, instead of making it into an entirely new show. You can also make episodes that focus primarily on a single character, such as Patrick or Squidward. Nickelodeon doesn't need to make multiple spin-offs, but I get it. They are a company and they know that it's going to make them a lot of money. I just think that there was a better way to go about it while still respecting Hillenburg's wishes. But that's about all I have to say for this review. My final score for the film is going to be 1 snail out of 5. However, I would recommend watching this film, if not alone, just for the fantastic animation that they were able to pull off. It's really cool to get to see this series reimagined in this new sort of style, so I would say it's worth it just for that reason alone. Well, that's about all I have to say about Sponge on the Run. Thanks so much for checking out my review, and if you did enjoy them, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're interested in my other content. Also, let me know your opinions on the film if you had the chance to see it and what your thoughts are. I'd be happy to have a discussion in the comments about this film because it's still SpongeBob and I love talking about this series. But that's it, take care, thanks for watching, and always remember, keep on collecting.